So glad you could join me today for PJ's Storytime. I have another great tale I'd like to share with you. I have heard of children who declared that they have never once seen a fairy. Very likely, if they said this in a garden, they were standing looking at a fairy all the time. And the reason that they were cheated was that she pretended to be something else. This is one of the best tricks. They usually pretend to be flowers because a flower is the thing least likely to attract attention. They dress exactly like flowers and change with the seasons, putting on white when lilies are in bloom, and blue for bluebells, and so on. They like crocus and hyacinth time best of all, as they like a bit of color, but tulips, except the white ones, which are the fairy cradles, they think are too bright colored, and they sometimes put off dressing like tulips for days, so that the beginning of tulip season is the best time to catch them. When they think that you are not looking, fairies skip along pretty lively. But if you look and they fear that there is no time to hide, they stand quite still, pretending to be flowers. Then, after you have passed without knowing that they were fairies, they rush home and tell their mothers that they have had such an adventure. Wherever there are flowers growing, usually the most of them are really flowers, but some of them are fairies. You never can be sure of them, but a good plan is to walk by, looking the other way, and then turn around suddenly, and maybe you will see one move, and then you may know she is a fairy. Or you can stand and stare at them, and after a long time they can't help winking, and then you may know for certain that they are fairies. Once there were numbers of them in a certain garden, which was a famous gentle place, which means a place where fairies often are. 24 of these fairies had an extraordinary adventure. They were a girls' school out for a walk with the governess and all wearing their hyacinth dresses. Suddenly, the governess put her finger to her lips and they all stood still on an empty flower bed and pretended to be hyacinths. Unfortunately, what the governess had heard was 2 gardeners coming to plant new flowers in that very bed. They were wheeling a hand cart with the flowers in it and were quite surprised to find flowers in the bed. "A pity to take up those hyacinths," said one gardener. "We must," said the other. "It's the Duke's orders." And having emptied the cart, they dug up the boarding school and put the poor frightened fairies in the cart. Of course, neither the governess nor the girls dare let on that they were fairies, so they were carted far away to a potting shed, out of which they escaped in the night without their shoes. And as for fairy houses, it is no use looking for them, because they are everything that our houses are not. You can see our houses by day, but you can't see them by dark. Well, you can see their houses by dark, but you can't see them by day. Their houses are built of many little pieces of different colored glasses, and the fairies are always peeping in at each other's houses and pressing their noses hard against the glass. And that is why fairies' noses are mostly snubby. Fairies never do anything that is useful. Everything that they do is make-believe. The fairies are wonderful dancers. They hold great balls in the open air in what is called a fairy ring. For weeks afterward, you can see the ring in the grass. It is not there when they begin, but they make it by waltzing around and around. Sometimes you will find mushrooms inside the ring, and these are the fairy chairs, which the fairy servants have forgotten to clear away. when the fairies have a party. If it is in May, the tablecloth is made of chestnut blossoms. The fairy men climb up the trees and shake the branches, and the blossoms fall like snow. Then the fairy lady servants sweep them together by whisking their skirts until it is exactly like a tablecloth. There is bread and butter to begin with, and cakes to end with, and they are so small that there are never any crumbs. The fairies sit round on mushrooms and are very well behaved. Fairies never say, "We feel happy." They always say, "We feel dancy." And now, perhaps, if you remember all this and look very sharp all about you someday, you may see a fairy. The end.